Okay.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. Oh, Martin, I love how you did that too. I love that little space guy.
Yeah.
WTFrNFTs today. We're
Yes.
episode 4. This is the 4th week. And you'll notice we don't have Corrales. I call him Corey, but he's not here with us. But if you see, there's another female in the house, and I'm so excited. Jackie, how do you say your last name?
It's just Jackie Roach, just like the bug.
Jackie Roach. I saw something with a W. I didn't know if that was your maiden name or
Oh,
something
that's
else.
my creative company, Wellness Productions. That's where I do my own NFT art and some of that fun stuff.
Okay, so that's Wellness Productions.
Yes.
Nice. Well, I'm going to be honest. I was really like putting it out there, seeing if you were going to be able to come. And then you said yes. And I don't know if I was more scared if you asking you, or then when you said yes, thinking like, oh my gosh, we have like an OG here with us today. So tell us about what you've been learning and what you're most excited about in this NFT space.
So I worked for a Berkshire Hathaway newspaper for 12 years. So I'm really, I was on the production side of things. I started out as a graphic designer, but I ended up getting into supply chain of our newsprint inventory. And at the time, that's when I got sponsored through my MBA in supply chain managing, global supply chain management. And that really introduced me to blockchain. So I knew blockchain as a business solution was going to very quickly be adapted and implemented in our world. Of course, I didn't know, that was in 2016. I didn't know COVID was going to happen. And now we have all these supply chain issues, and blockchain technology is being rapidly adopted everywhere. So I've always been a huge proponent of the technology itself. I didn't know anything really about crypto or NFTs or the financial side, which was kind of interesting to me. My podcast partner, Alex, he runs a company called My Crypto Advisor, which he was actually helping people with the technology. So right now we're still in early adoption. It's still not super user friendly in a lot of ways. Regulation doesn't understand what's happening. It's all, developing right in front of us. So getting into that side, when I got introduced to NFTs, having the newspaper background, I thought, wow, this is really gonna equalize journalism and how we create media and all of that stuff. So I have just been diving in pretty hard on NFTs for like the last 9 months. And it's hard to keep up with. There's just so much in development, but it is fun, and it's great to see so many creative things, and there's so many avenues to talk about, as you guys are aware.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing your background. We actually have Kate. Kate is somebody who watches us every week, and she wants to know if you could talk a little bit more about how you've seen blockchain being used or not used in supply chain.
So in supply chain, what's really important, especially to me, when we talk about sourcing and following things on a logistics schedule right now, so RFID chips are what's being used a lot. So we're actually just tracking and tracing things a lot better. And so for anyone that works in logistics, that can be the biggest headache. I know from even when I was newsprints and internationally traded product. So for us, you're talking about the customs papers that people need. You're talking about being able to track and trace something. Think of like food is a really great example. If we have a recall on beef right now, you have to recall an entire lot, for a certain period of time. But the future that we're stepping into is, you've got your pork chop in the fridge, you pull it out, you scan the QR code, you can see in real time if that meat is participating in any type of recall. So it's saving overhead for businesses themselves, and it's providing a lot of consumer advocacy. We're really just in the tracking and tracing steps, but I'm very much looking forward to the day. A lot of women care about clean beauty and, where our things are being sourced. Starbucks is a great example of empowering farmers and just giving a lot more, using technology to help us move things in much more effective and efficient ways without, slashing good things in that process, which is kind of what happens now when we cut corners, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's a great example. And I think, I can't remember, Martin, which show it was. He used this example of this idea of he's got two little kids who are they three, Martin? Your twins, are they two or three?
Almost
Four.
four.
Two 4-year-old twins. And so he was using this example of on the playground when kids have a nursery rhyme, and this concept of like to be able to trace back who originated that nursery rhyme, how it started, how that became part of the nomenclature, what iterations did it go through, right? And we have no idea in our history that these songs, have been passed down and passed down. And so similar to what I just heard you say with supply chain, that allows us to take, anything from a physical object to a non-physical object and see the history of it. And I think that's what's so exciting to me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We're in the data revolution, right? 2017, data became a more valuable commodity than oil. So in my mind, every industry, the same way we take crude oil and it gets refined so many different ways, we're going to be doing that with data. I mean, we already are to an extent. And what's just so beautiful about blockchain is for the companies that want to participate in public blockchains, we're reducing the amount of time it takes to even learn about things. So it's just a much quicker, it's so much cleaner. I think that's really just this idea of refining things and cleaning them and having access. That's what's really important to me with it.
Yeah, for sure. And allowing that data to be, I think for me, I live in this, I'm in the middle of the screen, right? I live in this middle space where I want big data and I want to be smart with data and I want to use that data in ways that make sense. But I don't want to also forget, like, for example, I run every morning, not every morning, but most mornings. And I don't wear my smartwatch. I don't bring my phone purposefully. And I can feel myself improving and getting faster, especially as it gets colder. It's a lot easier, right? And so I think there's this balance that, and especially like our show, we're here for real simple, right? Like people who are new to this space, because it is a little overwhelming and can be a little scary. And to think like if they're taking all our data, so how do you kind of approach that idea of big data? But then this part of like still knowing, we're talking a little like before the show, personal development. I guess maybe that's in my personal development lane, right? Like where does that fit for the individual as they start to kind of traverse down these paths?
I think that's a wonderful question. Fun fact, I got a meditation certification during COVID. And to me, we're upgrading on all cylinders. So this includes human consciousness. This includes how, we're talking about peer-to-peer trade. That's really what is happening right now. We're allowing individuals to access each other in a much more direct way. We talk about cutting the middleman out all the time. So for me, a lot of people, there was a documentary called, I think it was called The Social Dilemma. And it was on Netflix a lot. It was pretty big. And there was a part where they were at a tech conference and Tristan Harris, who's kind of big in this space, he was sort of advocating for regulation that, he was explaining that never before in history have we been able to use like retina scans and know what colors people respond to and flashes of light. I mean, it is scary when we think of how much power is in people who own data and can, put media out. And I can't remember the fellow's name that responded to him, but he said, it's true that there's a mechanism of manipulation that people are susceptible to, but is it any different from radio, television, internet? Or is it not that same mechanism? And it truly is up to us as individuals to decide that level of manipulation we're susceptible to. So I think there's so much power and knowledge, obviously. So I think the more people can learn about the technology and use it responsibly. Will that happen? Time will tell. I mean, as a species, I think we can look on history and, we're not exactly batting 1,000, but hopefully doing things like this, you can't say that we don't live in a time where there isn't access to at least information. So I hope personal responsibility coincides nicely with this, and that's my hope for all of this. Yeah.
Thanks. Martin, cue us in, Martin.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, because I lived in China for 16 years before the pandemic. So we came back here for a month at the end of 2019. And then the pandemic said you're not going home. So I'm sort of in the UK. And you were just talking about data and stuff like that. And China is obviously fairly good at monitoring people. And when I went to get my Chinese business license, I went to a bureau in China where I sat in a chair and I got photographed from 4 or 5 different angles. And then I looked over on a screen and I saw my face with like this sort of, and I was getting like red and pumped into the database. And then they say in China that with your like camera data, like CCTV cameras at traffic lights and in shops and stuff, they kind of contract you moving through. And I worked for a mobile gaming company who was really into AI, and they were sort of just crunching data at a crazy rate. And in China, they have more Google certified AI experts than any other company. Mm-hmm. And you sort of listen to all this stuff and you're like, oh my God, what have we done? But it sort of feels like Pandora's box got opened and kicked down the corridor decades ago. And then since the advent of the abacus, this was an inevitability. Like we were never not going to make these things smarter and to the point where they were sort of like, so it is listening to this and sort of making notes. And I was just sketching like, oil is more valuable or data is more valuable than oil. And just sort of thinking like, oh, should we be scared? Yes, we should be scared. Should we be complacent? We should always be on guard. But at the same time, like the flip side is amazing with all the things you're talking about in terms of tracking and managing and footprints. Like here was another sketch, what's the footprint that we can monitor of stuff? And it's just interesting hearing different perspectives because you don't want to sort of take it for granted and go, oh, it's going to be fine, because then you're like, the rug will get whipped out from beneath us. But at the same time, there's no need to be sort of like super paranoid, because this is kind of what we were going to do anyway, right? Like there was no sort of flip of a coin that said, should we do it or not? It was like, as soon as we started to calculate anything, it was like, mm-hmm. But it feels like it's accelerating really fast right now.
It is. I agree. And I want to, as I comment on that, I want to acknowledge we've got Tyler who's commenting. Hi, Tyler. Gigi, of course, Gigi, you're always here with us and we appreciate that. Jem says hello. You saw that, Kate. I see that Rob, I think, is somewhere on here. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Jackie, I love what you said. I think that as we go deeper into the metaverse, down that rabbit hole into Web3, there is this, while there's this even deeper technical, I don't know if awakening is the word, or revelation or understanding, right? And it is happening so fast. I also agree with you. There's this other side where, dare I say, I'll use the word spiritual, right? Where it is a spiritual reconnection that we saw that, especially with the pandemic, right? People want to connect with each other. And once we had to connect via the technology, it just became, well, if I can't really connect with people, and this is my only means to connect, and this is the meaningful way to do it, then I'm going to figure out how to make this more meaningful to me. And so I think we're seeing people do that. And I, like you, I've done a lot of, I meditate every morning, right? I've done a lot of that deep work. And I've been using metaverse, not really knowing what that meant, but thinking it just meant something like, I'm in the metaverse now, somewhere in the matrix technical space, but it's spiritual and technical and revolutionary all at the same time, right? And I think a lot of people are getting there. And Martin, I don't know that it has to be scary as much as it just needs to be a space that you're aware of what's right for you. Right. So like, what is right for you in this space, and in this time and place, and how do you figure out what that is that's right for you? So, Jackie, I want to turn it over to you. I'm really interested in your perspective as a female creator in this space and what that's been like for you. Because I know even from this, like Kate's in our comments, but typically I'm going into these spaces, it's all men. It feels very reminiscent of when I was in the district office as an administrator, right? So, like, what's your experience been like as a female in this space?
I guess I don't think about it too much, honestly. Being in the newspaper industry and being on the production side, especially, I was always with men. I've always had pretty good working relationships. I will say, especially when it gets to NFTs, the gaming industry is dictating a lot of where we're going to go. It's certainly on the bleeding edge of development. When I'm in those spaces, it is interesting. I follow a lot of NFT accounts on like Instagram and that. And to be totally honest, I just see a lot of stuff that I would consider just gross, like immature, young, just all sorts of those things. And I think sometimes that's the stuff that gives people this idea of like, well, I don't get it. Why are people doing this? Why is this, interesting? So to your point, I think it's important to have women showing their face. I'm willing to go on YouTube and have a podcast and just be here now. And there's a great book by Kate Northrup, and it's called Do Less. And there's a whole part of it that talks about, that the 9 to 5 was never really built for women. And actually, I know this from my studies that Taylorism and the scientific method actually structured the 9 to 5 day on when testosterone levels would be highest to get the most manual labor out of men. So it really was never built for women. But as we show up, she advocates for, we don't need to lean into this very narrow center. We can lean out. And blockchain, some of its tenets are decentralization, transparency. So I hold blockchain to those things. Like I said, I learned about it from a technology standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint. So everything it's been promised to be, I hold it to that. And for me, I think, I'm a crypto chick holder. And what I love about NFTs, what I love about NFTs is it's all about community. I got onto the Discord app, which I later found out was really big in the video game industry. But to see all these women coming together and it's fun, there's like crypto chicks I want to own. And I feel like I'm like 16 years old again, getting hyped up about these like things that are essentially silly, but this time period, it can be really difficult to meet people on a common subject. Like we don't have like typical water cooler conversation anymore, right? I mean, we're not all watching the same TV shows. So when you can come together about an NFT project, it just invites so much conversation that we might not be having otherwise.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, I'm getting some feedback.
You got yourself.
You sound good on my end, but maybe I don't sound good. Is that?
Okay. Well, I did for a minute there. Maybe it's better now. Yeah. So as people are coming into this space, male, female, regardless, right, of where they're entering, it can be a little overwhelming. And so that's why we wanted to start with this. Like, what in the heck are even NFTs? We're on LinkedIn, so we try to keep it professional here. And so, like, where do they even start? Where would you even say, if you're just wondering where to start, where might it be that you would recommend to start with an NFT or exploring in this space?
Really, I guess OpenSea is kind of like the eBay of NFTs. So that's probably the first place I think you can kind of get your bearings around the different like options that are out there, because NFTs, non-fungible tokens, I mean, they can represent anything from real estate to digital assets to intellectual property. So actually, you know what, I'll back up. I would just tell anyone that's going on this journey that it's a journey. Like, don't rush yourself. Don't act like you need to know it all at once, I mean, I get clients that call me about things. We just recently, we're working with a hip hop artist, and it's been really fun even to just dive into the audio side of things. You know, that wasn't something I had done yet. And really, I think NFTs are a new medium of communication. So with this blockchain internet, we're able to, when the internet first came out, all we could do was read things off a screen. Then we went into Web 2, which was read and write. So the platform economy, we could use social platforms, Facebook, MySpace, that kind of stuff. And Web 3 is the read, write, and execute economy. So we actually have this new layer of functionality, and that's developing right now. So it's really all about peer-to-peer transacting. I mean, it's just so cool how you can actually trade with people all over the world instantaneously, borderless. We don't know where it's going to go, but I'm optimistic for it. I have to maintain optimism.
Yeah, well, and I mean, what else is there if then not, right? Doom and gloom and dread, and right, like this is a time that I think, I don't know, you can just sense it. You can sense the energy coming from individuals and from conversations, and perhaps it's just the people I'm talking to, but even I was away with my mom and sisters this weekend. And we've got between the three, I have two sisters and my mom. So between the three girls, we have four girls ages 16 to 19. And so the girls were in the pool or hanging out or doing something. And I was sitting with my mom and sisters talking about Christmas gifts, right? What are you getting everybody for Christmas? It's like, I'm getting everyone a MetaMask wallet and Ethereum for Christmas. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because no, listen, I live in the suburbs of Chicago, in like the most dull, boring place that I grew up in for the last 47 years, essentially. And so I'm not even, to them, I'm like so far out there, right? And they're like, wait, how are you going to do that? And what even is that? That sounds crazy. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you know how the boys play, what is it? Roblox or Roblox?
Yeah.
And they buy the skins and the stuff in the store, and they think that like, essentially I'm going to give them that, but something that they will think is cool as teenage girls, because they don't want the Roblox stuff. And what does that say, Martin?
I was going to say, what was the, so
Oh,
what was read, write, and what was
and execute.
Execute. Right. And so after I just started saying, I said, because, back in the day when we were kids, do you remember getting bonds? You'd buy a $50 bond, and you'd have to wait 7 to 10 years and it'd be matured and you get double for it. Right. And so I was just saying, I don't know how much they'll get and how much they'll be able to make, but this is their version of a bond.
I'll tell you a really great story. So ENS is the Ethereum name service, and back in March, so basically when you get a wallet, it's, a whole bunch of letters and numbers. And if you want to send things, it has to be exactly correct. And it can be, if you have a letter wrong, it's just not going to get transferred, and there's no bank to call. So that is the stuff that's scary about crypto and all of that. So anyway, ENS came out, and they would let you name your wallet. So back in March, gas fees were nothing. I think I paid $50 maybe to name my wallet, and it was wellness.eth. So if you want to send me if you want to send me crypto, go ahead. It's wellness.eth. But a few weeks ago, they said they were going to reward everybody that had gotten early adopted this service. So, people made thousands of dollars. Like, it was crazy how many tokens they gave out. But my friend Alex, one of his Christmas gifts to his friend, or a birthday gift, to his friend, was their name, his name.eth. And it was worth $6,000 when he just cashed it in a few weeks ago. So, and that's really what I'm about. I get so many calls and texts of people, what coin should I invest in? Da, 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 da. And to me, it's like, no, you need to dive into the technology and be a user. I didn't think I was going to be in my 30s attending the Decentralization festival to see Paris Hilton DJ in the metaverse. But, I want to know the technology. I want to learn. I want to know what younger people are getting into. And then, and I just love that something I did back in March that was $50. I mean, it was a pretty substantial amount of money that even I received in the ENS tokens. So there was one guy I saw on LinkedIn that said he made an entire year's salary from that one drop. And there's so much money right now out there to get adoption going. The opportunity is just, if you're ready to learn, you're ready to make money.
Yeah, I love that because it really lowers the bar, right? Start where you can only start where you're at anyways, right? So I don't have a ton right now I mean, I could move stuff. I'm not ready yet. So like, I'm just putting in a little here, a little there, kind of watching. I really want my first NFT purchase to be really special because I think, you always remember your first time. So like, that's the quote for the show today, Martin. We're always going to remember the first time we met Jackie, first time I got to talk to you, right? I remember my first tattoo I got this year. So like your first time is really special. And I don't want to just purchase any NFT. I want to purchase the right NFT for me. And I don't know what that's going to be yet. So you make a really great point when you said, hold on, let me start over. Start the journey. Just start where you're at. And I think that, if there's one takeaway for anybody who's listening to this now or listening to this on the replay, which we appreciate you watching the replay, is, what? There's no pressure. It's open playing field. Like, when it's open play and everybody's invited in, that's what this is. You're invited in. Welcome. Come play. Yeah. Come play.
And with YouTube, I mean, there's so many tutorials out there for beginners and, just spend a couple hours a few times a week, just understanding the terms and you don't have to be a developer to be in this space. You just have to have a willingness to want to learn. And even with Decentraland, I'm a big fan of that project, and it's really funny. It's been doing really well. The Mana token has been doing really well the past like 2-3 weeks. It's been holding. A lot of crypto's been falling, and it's just been holding and going even higher. And I think when you actually step into Decentraland, and so for that, I would recommend people get the Brave browser. That's my favorite Web3 browser. I think it's decentraland.org.
What's it
called? Brave browser. Sorry. Brave. Yeah. And then what's cool is Brave browser, you can either they have a crypto wallet sort of built into it that you can set up, or I use MetaMask. And what's nice is you don't actually have to have funds in the wallet to get started on Web3. And that's a really good point with Web3 too. Right now we're all used to every site you go to, you need a username, you need a password, you have a million passwords, you're typing that in all the time, whatever. When you're on Web3, you're just connecting to your wallet. So your wallet is you. Like, you don't have to log in a bunch of times. You're prompted. It's pretty slick. So even when you get into Decentraland, you start walking around, you start to really like notice and understand like what's going on here, and that everything you're looking at is an NFT essentially.
Can I just ask a quick question? When you mentioned .e something s, is that ENS or ETS?
ENS, the Ethereum name service.
Yeah, so that's a great point too. Now that's taking your name and then having a dot. It's .eth though. So I would be, Dr. Stacey Gonzalez or Stacey Gonzalez .eth, right? But the service is in ENS, is the service that you use that makes that name for you. And then what Jackie, I think maybe this is a metaphor that we could use, or an example, simile metaphor. I was an English teacher. But what we can do is say, like, think about like how Venmo is now, right? It's Venmo probably, to identify me, has a bunch of numbers and a long code to find my Venmo account. But instead I can shorten it. I was able to shorten it, whatever it is. So that's kind of what this idea is it shortens your name from all those numbers that identify you as the owner. And this is important because as you think about any sort of social token or an NFT that you might be purchasing, you want to make sure you have that full ownership of it. And so that's why that naming convention might become even more valuable for you in the future.
Yes. And people that were ahead of the curve on this, it was kind of reminiscent of the .com. Everybody wanted to buy all these .com. So there were people out there that were buying Nike.ens and, Johnson & Johnson.ens or whatever company you could think of that was going to want to pay you later on for that name. And people have made some serious cash selling those as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the Ethereum name service. And there's also another one you can do, your name.crypto. But yeah.
Yeah. So those are just things, again, we just are here to give you ideas of maybe different entry points, places where you feel comfortable to start exploring. We're only on for about a half an hour or so once a week. And our goal is just to talk about what we're learning, bring people to you like Jackie, who's amazing, who can tell us about, maybe where we could be in a 2.0 version of ourselves in this show, or a 3 or 4 or whatever that's going to look like down the road. But we're super glad that you are just doing the work that you're doing and keeping it really real and meaningful for us.
Well, thanks. Honestly, I know a lot of us can think of like Second Life was sort of like this first virtual world, and it's you can tell people, our age are the ones developing this. I have to go on mute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. You mentioned Second Life, and I know you guys can hear me. I am trying to bring, the majority of the people that I work with are educators, K-12 public educators. And somebody who's been a friend of mine and runs a conference said, I will be happy to do either a poster session or I'll do a workshop. I'll do whatever you want. Just let me know. I'll talk about Web3. I'll talk about NFTs. Like I'm certainly not the expert. And he said to me, I don't get it. Like, why would we do that? Like that's like Second Life. Everybody said it was the big thing. And, back even up to 5 years ago, I'd go to conferences, education conferences, and people would, have their Web 2 tool all built out. Right. And I think this is going to look really different for education and educators, because if anything, that's the space where our young people are at. And they're the ones on the front lines of this. They get it. So our teachers, our educators need to lean into what our kids are doing. And I think that will be a really interesting into the future look. So if anybody's listening here, you have kids, that's also a place to go in and start, just sit next to your kids while they're playing video games. Watch how they're interacting. Ask them about their purchasing habits in while they're gaming, right? And I think you're going to see some interesting connections to what we're talking about.
That's a huge point, because when I was growing up, I was born in the mid 80s. So we were kind of one of the first houses to have a computer. My dad was a big tech guy. And, I remember our computer was in our family room. My parents could always see what I was doing when I was 12, 13, 14 years old on the computer. And it's different. It's a different world now with cell phones and personal devices. And I'm not a parent, and it's very scary to me to think what people can get into. We have a mental health crisis on our hands. And to me, even when I was a teenager, the internet was and we're talking HTML sites, it was limited. But that was a place for me to go and talk about things that were happening in my life that I couldn't talk to other people about. I was bullied really bad in high school. So this sort of was my, it wasn't, I don't think the internet was built enough for it to be an escape. But, I was definitely connecting with other kids or people that were going through what I was going through. And there was a lot of solace in it. There was a lot of healing in it. And we even see that now, like I mentioned earlier, I got a meditation certification through a Facebook group. And, people are going to be using this as a healing medium. But there's also, I always say I escaped the internet of the 90s and the early millennium relatively unscathed, but not everybody does. There's terrible things that can happen through the internet. So definitely parents getting involved. And, I've been into tech most of my life, but I've certainly gotten away from it. But for parents and educators, the next generation is too important to not learn this stuff. I think that's the worst thing people can do is go, that's too hard. That's too much. I mean, that type of mentality is what's gotten us into a lot of trouble with banking, with finance, just constantly giving our power away. So we have an opportunity to learn from history. Going back to that oil and data example, we can look at everything that happened in oil from the late 1800s to now and make better decisions about the logistics of data. And it's a beautiful time to do that. We should be doing that.
Yeah, I love that point. Corey and I had this long conversation about it, and it really got me to like full circle 180 or 360 my thinking, and the fact that, but it's so complicated. Like people just send me a huge long project list or not a task list of like all the different things you got to click and go through, and you're like sitting here like trying, and you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't working, right? But there's also something about there's something really powerful that happens when there's an extended focus that you do with this kind of this new learning, because it's so new, it's so different, and it's really important. I think that's the part that I've found, is that slowing down to truly like focus in on maybe setting up my MetaMask wallet, right? Or looking at like, wait, how much do I have? And can I really get that thing, or, that NFT or not? Or what if I made a social token? What would that look like? And what would that mean for me? And so there's a beauty that comes out of the exploration. And I think technology has taken some of that away because it is delivered so fast. I mean, think about fast food was fast 20 freaking years ago. Now fast food is like basically just put it in my stomach. I mean, really.
Inject it. Yeah.
I'm going to drive through and just sling that shit in there, right? So like there's something really, and Gen Xers, I'm a Gen Xer, right? We're used to things being pretty easy by and large. We've not even had social crises the way that other generations that come after us have, or generations before us have. And so we like it easy. And I'm going to say to all my Gen Xers out there, this is worth you not taking the easy route. It's worth you digging in to learn for yourself. Like you'll hear Jackie say, I will advise, I'll give you direction, but I'm not your advisor. You have to learn for yourself. I heard that even on your podcast, right? Like we'll help you, but it should be you being empowered to make decisions that are well-informed for yourself. And so that's really what we're hoping to do.
And I think this window of time that we have right now, prior to regulation raining down, because it is coming, and it's going to be for our safety. It's going to be because people want it. It's going to be because people don't want to have personal responsibility and personal accountability. And I get that. There's tons of services in my life that I'm willing to pay money to have somebody else think about. My money, my finances are not one of them. And that took me to adulthood to learn, because I was a corporate, sleepwalker for a long time. I made good money. I didn't really think about things. I spent a lot of money. I blew a lot of money, but crypto was one thing. And you made a great point. I was working with a younger gentleman not too long ago, and we were setting up his MetaMask wallet, and we got to the point of the seed phrase. And I said, look, you need to slow down, because he was doing everything so fast. And I was like, you need to slow down. I was like, I'm telling you, there is no bank to call if you mess this up, or you lose this seed phrase, and he really wasn't getting it. And he was still going really fast. And he did get to a point where I think it was MetaMask. They asked you to re-put the seed phrase in order. Yeah. And it was like, it finally clicked to him, like, oh, this is pretty serious. I was like, there's no one to call right now, but there will be someone to call soon. But I almost enjoy this window now more because of that reason.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point. That's, I think you kind of brought this full circle for me. The beauty about this time and space is it is so macro and micro almost simultaneously. right? You like the need to be so honed in on the nuance, but yet philosophically, when you look back and you sit back and you think about the potential and how people are dreaming in ways and the things that I mean, I was telling last week we were talking about, I went to the Seed Club showcase, and it was just they had some sort of a everybody could share their projects. And I was blown away by the DAOs and the things that people had created and just the vision behind, like, I mean, let's just talk about trying by the Constitution, right? Like, that whole thing was bad, but that comes from a huge macro belief system. But the nuance of understanding how to make that happen as a community, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, and this, DAOs are a perfect example. Like we're getting to participate in governance in ways that we have never been able to before. That's really exciting to me. That's really, and I even think, at my age, in my mid 30s, like there's just so much I didn't learn. Like school didn't teach me, a lot of, because we always had this hierarchy, and now things are going more lateral. And we have these like little hubs. And I think people get really scared by decentralization. But, as much as we're decentralizing, we're always organizing. We're always organizing in hubs. And that data's, there's a great project called The Graph that is indexing data. So they're actually taking the data on the blockchains and computing it and crunching it, turning it into graphs, all those types of things. And I can't wait for that day. I can't wait for the day that data speaks for itself, where a journalist doesn't have to rewrite it for me or give me an opinion of it. I get to just, what Martin does, I get to visually see this conversation. And it's a completely different experience with media. And it's just, how long have we been using symbols to communicate? And we're going back to that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. I love that we're using images, especially, right, Martin, you speak Chinese. And if you think about the way that language is developed versus the English language, we talked a little bit about English, like learning a new language in this whole new world, right, that we're in. And just that idea of we are in the middle of creating something that has never been created on such a global level before. That really, I mean, we've got our friends here from Africa. I see Gigi is here, and I think the some other folks. So really the potential is huge to connect in ways that were never, we thought the internet connected us in ways that was really cool. This, I think, is like total next leveling that.
Yeah. And I mean, even think of like the meme culture. I mean, people are literally getting full ideas about news from a meme that might have 15 words on it, So in a way, what I love is you can consume it fast, but you can think about it more deeply or do more research later. So it is scary how fast things are, though. I mean, trading information is just, it's mind-blowingly quick now. Yeah. But I think that is also why we're going through this like consciousness upgrade as well. Like, I mean, our brains are processors. So we're like literally processing this information quicker. And that's why meditation is so important. And all these other, real world and real life and experiences and breath work and slowing down and all of that stuff it's complementary to this. It shouldn't get lost in it,
Oh, that seems like a beautiful place to end on a very Zen moment that take for yourself.
We have to defrag our brains. We have to shut them down and let all the broken code get out once in a while.
Yeah, right. That hour a day I do first thing in the morning is I hadn't thought of it as a defrag, but it certainly is. Because then later on in my day, I notice these areas where my mind is able to make quicker, more meaningful connections. And those are the connections that we want. So, Jackie, thank you so much.
This was a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. This was great to finally talk with both you and Martin. And I can't wait to see these sketches. I'm super excited.
Yeah. So Martin, you didn't share much today, but you can in the after party. So will you drop the link? So anybody who's on
Yep.
our live, we always have an after show where you can sit and chat with us, and we're glad to just share. And we may not have answers, we may have ideas, and we'll share those with you. So please feel free to stop in the Toucan after the show.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Jackie. It was amazing.
Thank you.
All right.
Martin lost the button. That's fine. He was very busy. He's usually not this quiet. So we must, the two of us, we must have given him a lot to talk about.
Well, yes. I mean, when you start upping the women count, the talking goes up, right?
Faster talking, more excited talking.
Well, that's it, right? You've got to just shut up and listen sometimes. That's you've got to know when to do that.
Hey, Martin, I love you, but I think we're still live.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
He's like, I'm sketching over here.
I had another idea.
Yeah, no. We're going to go off now.